finance, like you say, it really is just the language. There's so many more pieces to making a good financial decision for a business. If we just look at the numbers and focus only on that, we're going to miss some key variables that are outside of the numbers. That is really an art of being a CFO in a high growth environment. Is often people want to go public because it sounds good, but it really does add a whole layer of challenge onto it.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Challenger X podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Melanie Pump on this episode. Melanie is an accomplished CFO with extensive experience steering and shaping both public and private companies. Beyond her financial expertise, she's deeply committed to fostering a positive culture that supports growth and innovation. In this episode, we'll explore her fascinating journey from receptionist to CFO of publicly traded companies, her philosophy on leadership, and her thoughts on how CFOs can help shape the future of finance. Let's welcome Melanie Pump. So welcome Melanie Pump to our show. I am so excited to have you. You are, one of the most impressive CFOs that I have met. I've actually had a chance to work with you on a few projects in technology, and you are just a very impressive person overall. You are empathetic, you've got soft skills, you have obviously very razor-focused financial skills. So just give us a little bit of background on how you got into finance and like your journey to becoming a CFO. Fascinating story.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. My path is a little different probably than the average CFO because I actually started my career as a receptionist in an environmental engineering firm, 21 years old, didn't know what I wanted to do. But fortunately, I worked with some really great people that saw the potential in me and supported me. And so I went to school part-time and finished my bachelor's in accounting, my CPA designation, and just started moving up the ladder. So I had this career that went receptionist, admin assistant, project accountant, controller, all the way up the ladder to get to the top of the position I'm in now as a CFO of a technology startup, and then also a number of director positions. So I really learned it all as I went that journey up the ladder.
That's incredible, inspiring. As you know, I started my career as a CPA as well. And, I find that the most successful CPAs are ones that understand that accounting and finance is really a language for business. And you can start there, but really help to shape companies as you start to see the strategy and the operations and sort of broaden your reach, if you will. So as you've now become sort of the architect of companies, having gone from receptionist to CFO of public companies and director, what have been sort of the core values that have guided you along that journey?
Yeah. Well, one of the key things is actually just what you sort of referred to there is understanding the broader aspects of the business. And so whether you want to call that a core value, but when I'm making a decision, I really work hard to just not be in my finance silo and to not just look at it through one lens. So I think that really is just a value of keeping an open mind, because finance, like you say, it really is just the language. There's so many more pieces to making a good financial decision for a business, and you really do need to understand all of them. If we just look at the numbers and focus only on that, we're going to miss some key variables that are outside of the numbers.
That's really a critical insight, and one that's usually missed in traditional conventional CPA programs. And I've had the pleasure of working with a number of CFOs, and it always strikes me that CFOs in high growth environments in startup, they are a different breed, because they have to keep typically a rocket ship of a company going fast, but also kind of be the sound of reason to, have an objective view of the financial investment involved in all of the number of initiatives underway. Typically, there's lots of projects at the same time. So how do you define the role of a CFO, particularly in a high growth environment, because it's very different to sort of a traditional industry CFO?
Yeah. And it's a really fine balance because you're right. Like the CFO has to kind of be, what I would say, we have to be the realist in a group of optimists, because in high growth environments and startups, the CEO, they have to be such an optimist. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that position, the CEO founder. So the CFO sort of has to be the person that can balance that a bit and be aware of the risks and aware of where that we may run into issues, but be able to communicate that in a way that isn't just raining on the parade all the time. Because you can feel that way. The CFO can sort of end up being the one who is always negative, always saying no. So we need to find that balance between ensuring there's an awareness of the risks while not just raining on the parade all the time. And that is really an art of being a CFO in a high growth environment, is keeping the excitement going, but also ensuring that we're being balanced and aware of the challenges and the risks that are there.
I want to unpack that a bit, because that is, okay, I think, the key element for anyone aspiring to be a CFO. Mm-hmm. And so I know personally, when I've worked with many CFOs, there have been instances where I really wanted to do an acquisition. And I had the term sheet, I had the finances, and my CFO would rein me in saying, this doesn't look like a good deal. I've done the analysis, and there was some really tense conversations around should we do the deal or not, because the CFO is really looking out for a more balanced view of the deal, and the CEO just wants to grow. And typically CEOs like me want to grow and grow fast. Can you think of examples where you were in that situation where it was an acquisition, a big project, or an investment where you had to work with the CEO to kind of balance out the analysis?
Definitely. I mean, that happens all the time. I've been in that situation exactly around acquisitions as well. And the art to that, for one thing, it's how you communicate. You really need to have a good relationship and a good trusting relationship with the CEO, so that for one, they know that you're not just trying to be difficult, you're genuinely looking out for what's right with the business. So that is really key in that kind of relationship. But then it's also, as the CFO, how you're communicating that, so that the CEO can really understand it. So laying out clearly what are the challenges, but also having an openness to what they're seeing, because there are multiple viewpoints to situations, and the CEO could be seeing something that is actually just not as clear. And if you don't take a risk, sometimes things don't work out. So it's a really, really fine balance, and sometimes the CFO does just have to be willing to be okay, like that this is the CEO is seeing something, they're a visionary, and maybe we do move forward with this, but then we need to put in controls around that to mitigate it and reduce the risk in the situation.
It's actually quite interesting that you've been in various capacities, and what I'm really impressed about is that you've gone from really early stage accountant to CFO of private companies, but now you're in public company environments where you've got shareholders and boards of directors and analyst calls. And talk to me about how you made that shift, and what are some of the things that you had to develop in your own sort of growth as a CFO?
Yeah, because it really is a different world when you're a public company, and that is something that really does need to be driven home, because often people want to go public because it sounds good, but it really does add a whole layer of challenge onto it. And a lot of that is around you lose flexibility because you say things to the market, and then you need to make sure that you follow through on them. And then you also have a lot of timing things around reporting and whatnot. So fortunately for me, I did actually start my career in the public company environment. So I had some experience from then about what it was. I was in the mining industry in my 20s and 30s. So I had an idea of what it is going into the pubco environment. But really, the main shift there is just realizing that you need to be really careful about what you're publicly reporting and what you're saying, and that you need to be able to ensure that can happen, that you can stand behind what you say. It really does sort of limit the flexibility that you have when you're in a private company environment.
We're all looking at the financial health of the tech market. These companies go up very quickly, and then they start facing challenges with access to capital, even public or private companies for that matter. You as a CFO, what are the things that keep you up at night when you are sort of the steward of all the financial assets of the company, right? What are some of the things you're seeing in the markets? We've had interest rates, that are high, capital is a little tight. Now we have a new president in the US. What are you seeing that gives you concern, and also other opportunities for the tech sector?
Yeah. So we are in a time of a lot of uncertainty. Like we really don't know which way things are going to go as far as access to capital. Looking at the markets today, it seems like things are going to be really positive, and perhaps we'll start to see a turn where there is more capital available, because we have been living for the past couple of years in an environment where it was difficult to raise money, and valuations had significantly dropped. I'm not ready yet to let go being concerned about that. I still think that, as a CFO, we need to be watchful. So be taking those steps to move forward and have growth, but still with a lens to, we don't know for sure if we're going to be able to raise money in a year. Don't know for sure what that valuation is going to be. So take those steps, grow the business, but really do have that plan to make sure if things are not as good as we hope they're going to be in 6 to 12 months, that you have a safety net in place.
What are the fundamentals of capital raising? A lot of the viewers here are CEOs of private companies, aspiring entrepreneurs. You've been in capital raising, for many, many years. When should you start raising money? How should you start raising money? And what are some of the things you need to think about as a small company looking to get that first few rounds of capital?
Well, I mean, the story is really important. As much as I'm a finance person, in those early stages, it is, as I say, it's less about the financial model and more about the story and the momentum that you can build around it. You do always need a financial model. I've gone into some startups where they haven't even done a financial model yet, so they haven't really even validated that the business could make money. You do need to go through that exercise to make sure that this business has legs and can be sustainable. But in that earlier stage, it really is more about, can you identify your target market, how you're going to reach that target market, who are your competitors? Some of those really key factors are going to be more important when you're out doing those initial pitches than it is saying how much revenue are you going to have in year one. Because I think most people don't really believe you on the revenue numbers at that point anyway, because you what do you have to hang a hat on that? Right. So in the beginning, those other strategic, like really making sure you have a business plan and a strategy that sounds like table stakes, but there's been so many times when I've gone into companies where they don't actually clearly have that yet. So that part is really key. And then as far as, who do you go after? In the beginning, everybody starts with friends and family. Everybody goes to the people that they know to do that initial raise. And those are often the people who stick with you, through the early stages and are willing to put money in again. It's not till you have some revenue, you really have traction in the market, that you're then able to start sort of moving up the food chain, whether that's to VCs, investment banks, and considering trying to raise more broadly.
That's a great perspective on being clear about your story. And I think it's very powerful when a CFO is part of that storytelling, because, people tend to believe the CFO more than, perhaps the CEO, because as you said, the CEO is a little bit more visionary and right. Somewhat unrealistic. So it's a really good, healthy balance. I want to switch gears, because not only are you a CFO, but you're also an author, a well-published author. And what was really striking to me is that you have built your career in very high pressure, high growth tech companies as CFO, but still you wrote a book on mental health in the workplace and toxicity. So I want to understand what prompted you to write that book and how you find the balance between, leading a high performance organization, which all startups need to be, and allowing your people to have healthy balance in their life.
Yeah. Well, the reason I wrote that book is, as I mentioned earlier, in the beginning of my career, I had some key leaders that really helped support my growth and help me achieve what I did. And I really don't feel that I would have been able I have gone in the same powerful direction if I hadn't had that healthy work environment and support. And then at other times in my career, unfortunately, as many of us end up, I worked in some much less healthy work environments. And what I saw there was really high quality people that could have had significant growth in their career get stunted. And not only did that hurt them, so they weren't able to reach their potential, the business suffered too. So like a business, unhealthy work environments aren't just hurting the employees, they're also hurting the business. So from a financial perspective, I also saw these work environments, if we allow them to become toxic, it's damaging from a financial perspective. So I wrote that book both as me as a human, wanting people to live healthy lives and not feel negative in their workplaces, but also as an accountant and a finance person who truly believes that if you create a healthy workplace, the company is also going to do better.
And what were some specific lessons from your career journey as you put pen to paper that you brought out? And I'm going to encourage all my teams and the companies I run to go out and buy that book. What are some specific lessons in that book that you want us as leaders and colleagues to understand?
Yeah. Well, one of them is, one of the term that's used now is psychological safety, like the power of psychological safety in the workplace. And Amy Edmondson is a Harvard professor who's worked a lot around that theory. And that if you don't create psychological safety in your workplace, actually innovation drops off, performance drops off, because people are afraid to ask questions. They won't throw out their ideas. If they don't feel this is a work environment where it's safe for me to speak up, then they won't. And that can actually, you'll lose ideas. Problems won't get solved because people won't raise them. And that has huge knock-on effects, because if people aren't talking, they're also not learning, they're not growing. Promotions tend to be much lower in companies that don't have psychological safety, because people aren't taking the risks to learn and push themselves forward. So that is one concept that I really do. And I've done some speaking engagements on that concept specifically about why you'd want to create a psychologically safe work environment.
That is quite insightful. And it's something that I, as a CEO, continuously try to create an environment where people are using Slack and Teams channels to share their ideas and not to feel like they need to be quiet, right?
Right.
So
right.
I want to shift to the future. You've got obviously lots of great experiences. The world is sort of at an inflection point with geopolitical risks, AI, technology, innovation. We on this podcast talk to a number of leaders who are innovators. We call them challengers, who are challenging the status quo and challenging the old rules of business. So what do you think are the new rules for business going forward as we look into the future?
Yeah. I mean, certainly capitalizing on the innovation and technology that's coming forward, that's just a given. We all have to do that. It is, especially in my field, accounting, like the amount of tools and technology that have come in that are now supporting us to be more efficient. It's been game changing, really, but also for us to not lose sight of the people and the importance of the people. Like AI is going to have a huge impact on what we're doing, but we we're always going to be selling to people. We're always going to be trying to connect to people. So I don't think we want to lose sight of that in our business either. That you do need to remember who your customer is, who the people on your team are, and continue to talk to them and involve them in what's happening, and don't just think that technology is going to answer every problem.
Yeah, in fact, I couldn't agree more. I think we almost have to double down on the human interaction because of the risk of us becoming, very alienated within AI echo chambers.
Well, exactly, and sort of losing sight of the uniqueness of the human perspective and the importance of connection. And you see that in the remote environments that we're all working in. We have to work a lot harder to stay connected, and especially as leaders. I do still believe that, tone from the top, really is critical, and who that leader is and people knowing the leader is still really important. But I think leaders have to work a bit harder today to connect with their teams.
Melanie Pump, what an honor it has been to have you on the show. Your journey has been an inspiration. Congratulations on the book. And we'll be looking out for interesting news on your future as you help shape the Canadian tech ecosystem, and all the best in the coming years.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.